Single father was evicted along with his son, until a mysterious woman appears and everything changes. Before anything else, let's see how connected we really are. What's one thing you can see from your window right now? The flickering screen of Marcus Reynolds's dying laptop cast eerie shadows across the cramped apartment as he hunched over a pile of medical bills, his fingers trembling as they moved across the calculator. Each number felt like a nail in his coffin. Tyler's medication alone cost more than most people's rent, and the specialized treatments. God, the treatments were bleeding him dry. Daddy? Tyler's weak voice drifted from the living room couch where he lay wrapped in 3 blankets, his small frame shivering despite the fever that burned through his 9-year-old body. I'm here, buddy, Marcus called softly, quickly shoving the eviction notice under a stack of unpaid bills. Tomorrow. They had until tomorrow before the sheriff would come knocking. Where would they go? The question gnawed at him like a hungry beast. He walked to the couch and knelt beside his son, brushing damp hair from Tyler's flushed forehead. The boy's eyes, once bright with curiosity and laughter, now seemed too large for his thin face. 18 months ago, they'd been planning Tyler's 8th birthday party. Now Marcus couldn't even remember the last time he'd seen his son truly smile. Are we going on an adventure tomorrow? Tyler asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Marcus's heart shattered. How could he explain to a sick child that they were about to be homeless? That all the money he'd saved for Tyler's college fund, the emergency fund, even his retirement, all of it had vanished into the endless black hole of medical expenses? Yeah, buddy, we're going on an adventure, Marcus managed, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. As Tyler drifted back to sleep, Marcus returned to his laptop, staring at the screen that displayed their impossible reality. Rent, $200 overdue. Medical bills, $47,000 and climbing. Bank account, $2347. The syndrome of Kleefstra had stolen more than Tyler's health. It had devoured their entire future. He remembered the day everything changed. Dr. Morrison's office, the way the fluorescent lights made everything look cold and clinical. I'm sorry, Mr. Reynolds, but Tyler has Kleefstra syndrome. It's a rare genetic disorder that affects cognitive development and can cause seizures, breathing problems. The words had blurred together after that, but the price tag became crystal clear over the following months. Marcus began packing their few remaining possessions into 2 worn duffel bags. Tyler's medications went in first, the precious bottles that cost more than gold. Then came the boy's favorite stuffed elephant, some clothes, and a framed photo of Tyler's mother, Sarah, who died in a car accident when Tyler was 3. The cold Chicago wind rattled the windows as Marcus lifted his sleeping son from the couch. Tyler stirred slightly, wrapping his thin arms around his father's neck. Where are we going, Daddy? Marcus stepped into the hallway for the last time, Tyler's weight feeling both heavy and weightless in his arms. The future stretched before them, like a dark tunnel, but as he looked down at his son's trusting face, Marcus made a silent promise. I don't know yet, buddy, he whispered into the night air as they walked toward the building's exit, but I'll find us a way. I promise you that. The automatic doors slid open and the brutal Chicago winter hit them like a physical blow. Marcus pulled Tyler's blanket tighter around them both and stepped into the unknown, carrying his most precious cargo into a world that seemed determined to break them both. But sometimes in our darkest moments, angels appear in the most unexpected forms. The concrete beneath them felt like ice as Marcus carried Tyler through the empty streets at 3 a.m. Most of Chicago slept peacefully while father and son wandered like ghosts in search of shelter. Marcus had found a 24-hour diner 6 blocks away. Maybe they could sit there until morning, nurse a cup of coffee, and figure out their next move. That's when Tyler's body went rigid in his arms. No, 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 Marcus whispered desperately as Tyler began convulsing violently. The seizure hit like lightning, more severe than any they'd experienced before. Marcus dropped to his knees on the sidewalk, cradling his son as Tyler's small body shook uncontrollably. Help! Somebody help us! Marcus screamed into the empty night, his voice echoing off the silent buildings. Tyler's breathing became labored, his lips turning blue in the harsh streetlight. The purr of a luxury engine cut through the night air. A sleek black Mercedes pulled up to the curb, and a woman in an elegant coat stepped out. She was perhaps 45, with sharp features and perfectly styled blonde hair that seemed untouched by the winter wind. "How long has he been seizing?" she asked with clinical precision, immediately kneeling beside them without regard for her expensive clothes. "About 3 minutes," Marcus gasped. "He has Kleefstra syndrome. I don't have his emergency medication. We lost our apartment. Everything's packed." The woman's eyes flashed with something Marcus couldn't identify. Pain? Recognition? She pulled out her phone with surgeon-like efficiency. "This is Dr. Sterling. I need an ambulance at the intersection of Michigan and Randolph immediately. Pediatric patient, status epilepticus, possible respiratory compromise." She ended the call and focused on Tyler with laser intensity. "Tilt his head slightly. Support his airway. The seizure should break soon." "Are you a doctor?" Marcus asked, amazed by her knowledge and take-charge demeanor. "Something like that," she replied mysteriously, checking Tyler's pulse with professional precision. True to her prediction, Tyler's convulsions gradually subsided. The ambulance arrived within minutes, and the woman, who'd introduced herself simply as Victoria, accompanied them to Chicago General's emergency department. In the hospital, Victoria seemed to know everyone. Nurses deferred to her judgment, and within an hour, a pediatric neurologist Marcus had never heard of appeared for a consultation. "Mr. Reynolds," Dr. Patterson explained, "we're going to run some tests and adjust Tyler's medication protocol. There's also a new compassionate use program for Kleefstra patients that might help with costs." As Tyler slept peacefully under sedation, Marcus collapsed into a waiting room chair, exhaustion hitting him like a freight train. When he woke 6 hours later, sunlight was streaming through the windows, and Victoria was gone. A social worker named Janet appeared with remarkable timing. "Mr. Reynolds, I have some wonderful news. A spot just opened up in our subsidized housing program. A 2-bedroom apartment in Lincoln Park. And there's more." She handed him a business card. "Sterling Biotech is looking for a systems analyst with your exact qualifications. The position comes with excellent health insurance that covers experimental treatments." Marcus stared at the card, his tired mind struggling to process the coincidences. The woman who'd helped them last night had called herself Dr. Sterling. Now Sterling Biotech was offering him salvation? "How did you know about my background?" he asked slowly. Janet smiled warmly. "Your former employer provided a glowing reference when we called about the housing application. These opportunities don't come along often, Mr. Reynolds. Sometimes, the universe aligns to help those who need it most." As Tyler opened his eyes and smiled weakly at his father, Marcus felt a mix of gratitude and unease. In 12 hours, they'd gone from homeless and hopeless to having housing, health care, and employment opportunities. It was either the most incredible luck in the world, or someone very powerful was pulling strings behind the scenes. But why? And what did they want in return? Marcus squeezed Tyler's hand, remembering the mysterious woman's intense gaze when she looked at his son. Something about her expression had seemed almost hungry. 3 weeks later, Marcus stood in the doorway of their new apartment, watching Tyler color at the kitchen table, something he hadn't had the strength to do in months. The Lincoln Park apartment was modest but clean, with 2 actual bedrooms and windows that let in real sunlight. "Look, Daddy." Tyler held up his drawing of a superhero. "It's Captain Medicine Man. He helps sick kids get better." Marcus smiled, but his mind was elsewhere. Tyler's improvement was nothing short of miraculous. The new medication protocol from the compassionate use program would normally cost $8,000 per month. Yet somehow it arrived at their door every 2 weeks with no bill attached. His first day at Sterling Biotech had been equally surreal. The gleaming downtown office building housed one of Chicago's most innovative medical technology companies. Marcus's new boss, Dr. Sarah Chen, had welcomed him like an old friend. "We're so excited to have you, Marcus," she'd said, leading him to a corner office that seemed far too nice for his pay grade. "Your background in systems analysis is exactly what our medical database project needs." But it was the casual comments from co-workers that made his skin crawl. "Oh, you're Tyler's dad," Jenny from HR had said during lunch. "How's he adjusting to the new treatment protocol?" Marcus had frozen. He'd never mentioned Tyler's name or condition to anyone at the company. "I'm sorry, how do you know about my son?" Jenny's cheeks had flushed red. "Oh, medical insurance. Paperwork, you know. We handle all the family coverage details." That afternoon, Marcus had discreetly reviewed his insurance paperwork. Tyler wasn't listed anywhere in the company files. His coverage was supposedly coming through the state program, not Sterling Biotech. During his second week, Marcus was troubleshooting a server issue when he stumbled across a restricted database labeled Compassionate Research Initiative. The access was blocked, but not before he glimpsed a patient list. His blood ran cold when he saw Tyler's name, medical ID number, and current medication dosages listed in perfect detail. "Finding everything okay?" Dr. Chen appeared behind him suddenly. "Just a routine system check," Marcus replied carefully. "This Compassionate Research Initiative database, is that related to our clinical trials division?" Dr. Chen's expression became guarded. "That's above your clearance level, Marcus. Let's focus on the projects you've been assigned." That evening, Marcus tucked Tyler into his new bed, watching his son's peaceful breathing. The improvement was undeniable. Tyler had more energy, fewer seizures, and for the first time in 18 months, hope flickered in his eyes. But someone was orchestrating their entire lives from the shadows. Marcus pulled out his laptop and began searching. Sterling Biotech, founded 12 years ago by Victoria Sterling, current CEO. He clicked on her photo and his heart stopped. The same mysterious woman who'd helped them on the street. The same Dr. Sterling who'd commanded the emergency room like she owned it, because she probably did. Marcus stared at the screen, pieces of an impossible puzzle clicking into place. Their rescue hadn't been coincidence or luck. Victoria Sterling, one of Chicago's most powerful executives, had personally intervened in their lives. But why? What did a billionaire CEO want with a desperate father and his sick child? And more importantly, what would she expect in return? Marcus closed the laptop as Tyler stirred in his sleep, murmuring, "Thank you, Dr. Lady." Even in his dreams, Tyler remembered their mysterious savior. Marcus just wished he understood whether she was their guardian angel or something far more dangerous. In her penthouse office, 50 floors above Chicago, Victoria Sterling stared at Tyler's latest medical reports with trembling hands. Each positive indicator, improved cognitive response, fewer seizures, better appetite, sent waves of both joy and agony through her chest. The numbers were almost identical to Emma's reports from 3 years ago, during those precious few weeks when they'd thought they were winning the battle. Victoria opened her desk drawer and pulled out a faded photo, a blonde girl with Tyler's same bright eyes, taken just months before Kleefstra syndrome stole her away forever. Emma would have been 12 now, probably arguing about makeup and boys instead of lying cold in Graceland Cemetery. "Ms. Sterling?" Her assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Your brother Adrian is here to see you." Victoria quickly closed the drawer. "Send him in." Adrian Sterling entered with the predatory confidence of a man who'd spent his life in corporate warfare. As VP of Operations, he'd always resented playing second fiddle to his older sister's leadership. "Vic, we need to talk." He placed a thick, manila folder on her desk, about unauthorized expenditures and some very concerning behavior patterns. Victoria's blood chilled as she opened the folder. Photos spilled out. Her leaving Chicago General at 4 a.m. 3 weeks ago, her meeting with Dr. Patterson, her visits to Tyler's school to check on his progress. "You're having me followed?" "The board asked me to investigate irregular company spending," Adrian said coldly. $250,000 in research initiatives that don't exist in any approved budget. Medical consultations for a single pediatric patient who isn't part of any official trial. Victoria stood slowly, her executive mask sliding into place. "My research investments are within my authority as CEO. Are they? Because from where I sit, it looks like you're using company resources to play savior to some random kid." Adrian leaned forward. "This obsession is affecting your judgment, Vic. The board is starting to notice your irregular emotional investments. Meanwhile, 20 floors below in the Sterling Biotech cafeteria, Marcus sat alone picking at his sandwich when two software engineers at the next table spoke in hushed tones. "Did you hear about Reynolds and Systems? The new guy?" "Yeah, direct hire recommendation from the executive board. Never seen anything like it. My friend in HR says his file came straight from Victoria Sterling's office with a note. Priority. Placement, full benefits, no questions asked." Marcus's appetite vanished. He'd been hired not because of his qualifications, but because Victoria Sterling had personally intervened. Every aspect of their new life, the apartment, the job, Tyler's medications, was orchestrated by a woman who was clearly hiding her true motives. Back in the executive suite, Adrian delivered his ultimatum. "End this little charity project, Vic, or I'll take it to the full board. Whatever guilt you're carrying about Emma's death doesn't justify risking our company's reputation." Victoria's mask cracked for just a moment, revealing the raw grief beneath. "Get out." 3 days, Adrian said, gathering his photos. "End your involvement with the Reynolds family or I will." As her brother left, Victoria turned to stare out at the city below. Somewhere down there, Tyler was probably doing homework at his kitchen table, alive and improving because of her intervention. She'd already lost one child to Kleefstra syndrome. She wouldn't lose another, not even if it cost her everything. The emergency board meeting was called for Monday morning, just 3 days after Adrian's ultimatum. Victoria sat at the head of the polished conference table, facing 12 pairs of skeptical eyes as her brother presented his case like a prosecuting attorney. Unauthorized medical consultations, unapproved research expenditures, personal involvement with non-trial subjects, Adrian recited from his prepared notes. These actions compromise Sterling Biotech's reputation and expose us to liability issues. Board member Harrison Webb leaned forward. "Victoria, these are serious allegations. Can you explain the nature of your personal investment in this pediatric case?" Victoria had spent the weekend crafting her response. "Gentlemen, I'm establishing an independent medical consulting practice focused on rare pediatric diseases. My personal funds, my personal time, completely separate from Sterling Biotech operations." The room fell silent. It was a brilliant move. She couldn't be accused of misusing company resources if she was acting as a private citizen. Adrian's jaw tightened. "And your sudden interest in consulting work? This wouldn't have anything to do with your emotional state following Emma's death?" The mention of her daughter's name sent ice through Victoria's veins, but she maintained her composure. "My medical background and personal experience with Kleefstra syndrome make me uniquely qualified to help other families. If that threatens you, Adrian, perhaps you should examine your own motivations." Within 48 hours, Dr. Sarah Mitchell, pediatric consultant, had proper credentials, malpractice insurance, and a small office in downtown Chicago. Victoria had used her connections to create a completely legitimate medical identity that would stand up to any scrutiny. Her first official appointment was with Tyler Reynolds. Marcus seemed nervous as he brought Tyler to the modest medical office. "I still don't understand why Tyler needs another specialist. His current doctors say he's doing well." "Sometimes fresh eyes can spot opportunities for optimization," Victoria replied smoothly, her new professional persona feeling like armor. "I specialize in Kleefstra cases." Tyler climbed onto the examination table with surprising energy. Over the past month, his improvement had been remarkable. Stronger muscles, clearer speech, longer attention span. "Are you the doctor who helped us that night?" Tyler asked suddenly, studying Victoria's face with the unnerving perceptiveness of children. Victoria's heart skipped. "What makes you think that?" "Your voice and your eyes." Tyler tilted his head. "But you look different. Sadder, maybe." The innocent observation hit Victoria like a physical blow. Through all her corporate masks and careful personas, a 9-year-old boy had seen straight through to her wounded soul. "Why do you look sad when you look at me?" Tyler continued, his question delivered with the brutal honesty only children possess. "Did I do something wrong?" Victoria had to grip the examination table to steady herself. For a moment, she wasn't seeing Tyler. She was seeing Emma, asking similar questions during those final weeks. "Why are you crying, Mommy? Am I going to get better?" "You haven't done anything wrong," Victoria managed her professional composure, cracking. "Sometimes grown-ups carry sadness that has nothing to do with the children they're trying to help." Tyler nodded solemnly, as if this made perfect sense. "My daddy carries sadness too, but he smiles more now that I'm getting better." After the appointment, as Marcus scheduled follow-up visits, Tyler hugged Victoria goodbye, a spontaneous gesture that nearly brought her to her knees. "Thank you for making me feel better, Dr. Mitchell," he whispered. That evening, alone in her penthouse, Victoria stared at Emma's photo and made a vow. She would save Tyler Reynolds, not to absolve her guilt over Emma's death, but because this brave little boy deserved every chance at life, even if it meant war with her own brother, even if it cost her everything she'd built. Tyler's innocent question had shown her the truth. Her sadness wasn't weakness. It was the source of her strength. Something nagged at Marcus as he watched Dr. Sarah Mitchell's careful attention to Tyler during their third appointment. Her medical knowledge was extensive, almost encyclopedic, but certain details didn't add up. That evening, Marcus did what any concerned father would do. He researched his son's new doctor. Dr. Sarah Mitchell had graduated from Northwestern Medical School, completed pediatric residency at Children's Hospital, and specialized in rare genetic disorders. The credentials checked out, but the timeline felt wrong. According to her records, she'd only been practicing independently for 6 months. Marcus called Children's Hospital directly. "I'm sorry, sir, but we don't have any record of a Dr. Sarah Mitchell completing residency here," the administrator explained. "Could you double-check the spelling?" The pit in Marcus's stomach grew deeper. He cross-referenced medical licensing boards, professional associations, even social media. Dr. Sarah Mitchell existed on paper, but her professional history had gaps, large enough to drive a truck through. During Tyler's next appointment, Marcus waited until his son was distracted by toys in the corner before confronting her. "I know you're not who you claim to be," he said quietly. Victoria's hand stilled on Tyler's chart. She'd been expecting this moment, dreading it. "Your medical license is real, but barely 6 months old. Your residency records don't exist. Your practice address leads to an office that was empty until 2 weeks ago." Marcus's voice remained calm, but his eyes were steel. "Who are you, really?" Victoria looked across the room at Tyler, building a tower with blocks, humming softly to himself. The boy had gained 8 pounds and hadn't had a seizure in 3 weeks. His speech was clearer, his coordination improved. He was thriving. "My name is Sarah," she said finally, the partial truth feeling heavy on her tongue. "The Mitchell part. That's my maiden name. I did complete medical training, though not recently." She sat down across from Marcus, her professional mask slipping away. 3 years ago, I lost my daughter to Kleefstra syndrome. Emma was 7 when she died." Marcus felt his anger deflate, replaced by recognition of shared grief. "After Emma." Victoria's voice cracked slightly. "I dedicated my life to helping other families facing the same nightmare. I use my personal resources, my medical connections, whatever it takes. That explains the medical knowledge, but not the manufactured credentials. Sometimes the system requires certain presentations to help children who need it most," Victoria said carefully. "I don't profit from this. I don't even break even. I just can't stand by and watch another child suffer when I have the means to help." Tyler looked up from his blocks. "Daddy, why do you look upset? Dr. Mitchell is helping me feel better." Marcus studied Victoria's face, seeing the raw pain of loss that mirrored his own desperate nights. Her devotion to Tyler was either the most elaborate manipulation he'd ever encountered, or the genuine grief of a mother who'd failed to save her own child. "Show me Emma's picture," he said softly. Victoria hesitated, then pulled out her phone. Emma had Tyler's same bright eyes, the same determined chin. "She was beautiful," Marcus whispered. "She was everything," Victoria replied. as Tyler returned. To his blocks, Marcus made a decision that would change all their lives. He chose to trust the broken woman who understood his fear better than anyone else in the world. He just hoped he wasn't making the biggest mistake of his life. The call came on a Tuesday morning, while Marcus was reviewing system logs at Sterling Biotech. Tyler's pharmacy was apologetic but firm. His monthly medication shipment was delayed due to protocol review requirements. "What kind of protocol review?" Marcus asked, panic creeping into his voice. "The compassionate use program is undergoing regulatory assessment. All shipments are temporarily suspended pending compliance verification." Marcus immediately called Dr. Patterson, Tyler's neurologist, who sounded equally confused. "I haven't heard anything about protocol reviews. Let me make some calls." By Thursday, Tyler was showing signs of withdrawal from his specialized medications. The improvements of the past 2 months began reversing with terrifying speed. Increased seizure activity, cognitive fog, the familiar exhaustion that had once consumed his small body. "Daddy, I don't feel good," Tyler whispered from the couch, his voice weak again. Marcus called Victoria in desperation. "Sarah, Tyler's medication was cut off. They're saying protocol reviews, but no one knows what that means." Victoria's blood ran cold. She knew exactly what it meant. Adrian was making his move. While Victoria worked frantically to restore Tyler's medication access through alternative channels, Marcus discovered an envelope slipped under his apartment door. Inside were photocopied documents that made his blood freeze. Subject T47, male age 9 Kleefstra syndrome diagnosis. Experimental protocol ST4402 showing promising results. Subject unaware of participation in Phase 2 trials. Parental consent obtained through deception. Recommend continuation of blind study. The documents bore Sterling Biotech letterhead and were signed by Dr. S. Mitchell, principal investigator. Marcus's hands shook as he read further. Tyler wasn't just receiving treatment. He was apparently a test subject in unauthorized human experiments. The papers suggested his son was being used as a lab rat without his knowledge or true consent. When Victoria arrived at their apartment that evening, Marcus was waiting with the damning papers spread across the kitchen table. "Is this what you've been doing to my son?" His voice was deadly quiet. "Using him as your personal experiment?" Victoria stared at the documents, recognizing Adrian's handiwork immediately. The letterhead was real, but the content was fabricated. A masterful blend of truth and lies designed to destroy her relationship with the Reynolds family. "Marcus, these documents are false. I would never—" "Your signature is right there." Marcus's control finally snapped. "Dr. S. Mitchell, principal investigator. You've been lying to me from the beginning, haven't you?" Victoria couldn't reveal that she was CEO of Sterling Biotech, that her brother was sabotaging Tyler's care, that these documents were planted to discredit her. Any admission would expose her to legal liability for using corporate resources, potentially ending her ability to help Tyler or any other child. "I know how this looks," she said desperately, "but you have to trust me. Tyler's treatment is legitimate. Those papers are designed to make you doubt." "Get out," Marcus said coldly. "Stay away from my son." "Marcus, please. Tyler needs his medication. Without it—" "I said get out." As Victoria left, Tyler appeared in the hallway, pale and confused. "Daddy, why did you make Dr. Mitchell leave? She helps me feel better." Marcus knelt beside his son, his heart breaking. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, buddy. We're going to figure this out." But as Tyler's condition worsened over the following days, Marcus wondered if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life, trusting a woman who might have been manipulating them all along. 5 days without his specialized medication, and Tyler was fading before Marcus's eyes. The seizures had returned with vengeance, 3 in the past 24 hours. Tyler's speech slurred, his coordination failed, and the bright spark in his eyes dimmed to the familiar vacant stare that had haunted Marcus for 18 months. "Daddy, everything feels fuzzy," Tyler whispered from his hospital bed in the pediatric ward. The emergency room doctors could only provide basic anti-seizure medication, nothing like the specialized protocol that had been working miracles. Dr. Patterson was blunt. Without his previous medication regimen, Tyler's condition will deteriorate rapidly. I've tried every channel I know, but the compassionate use program seems to have vanished overnight. That night, desperation drove Marcus to make a decision that would change everything. Using his Sterling Biotech employee access card, he returned to the downtown office building after hours. If Tyler was really part of some company experiment, there had to be records somewhere. The executive floors were eerily quiet as Marcus navigated darkened hallways. His key card shouldn't have worked above the 15th floor, but somehow it did. Another suspicious coincidence he'd ignored for too long. Following signs for research division, authorized personnel only, Marcus found himself in a corridor he'd never seen before. Through a glass door marked Private Research Initiative, he glimpsed something that stopped his heart. The laboratory beyond was dedicated entirely to Kleefstra syndrome research. Charts lined the walls showing brain scans, medication protocols, and patient progress reports. But it was the personal touches that revealed the devastating truth. Photographs of a blonde girl, Emma, covered one entire wall like a shrine. School pictures, family moments, hospital visits, all documenting a child's battle with the same disease consuming Tyler. At the center hung a professional portrait, a 7-year-old girl with Tyler's same determined smile. And beside Emma's memorial wall, Marcus found Tyler's complete medical file. Not the basic insurance records he'd seen before, but detailed research documentation spanning months before they'd even met. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, blood work, brain scans, genetic analyses, psychological profiles. Tyler had been under surveillance long before that night on the street. You weren't supposed to find this place. Marcus spun around to find Victoria standing in the doorway, but she looked different now. Gone was the humble consultant persona. This woman wore a designer suit and carried herself with the unmistakable authority of someone accustomed to power. "Who are you?" Marcus demanded, his voice echoing in the sterile laboratory. Victoria stepped into the room, moving past Emma's photographs with practiced ease. "My name is Victoria Sterling. I'm the CEO of Sterling Biotech." The words hit Marcus like physical blows. The mysterious savior, the helpful consultant, the grieving mother, all masks worn by one of Chicago's most powerful executives. "You've been manipulating us from the beginning," he said, backing away from her. "Yes," Victoria admitted, her corporate composure cracking. "I had you investigated. I arranged your housing, your job, Tyler's medical care. I orchestrated everything." "Why?" The word came out as a broken whisper. Victoria gestured to Emma's wall, her professional mask finally shattering completely. "Because I killed my daughter through neglect. I was so obsessed with corporate acquisitions and board meetings that I missed the signs of her deterioration. When Emma died, I was in Switzerland closing a pharmaceutical deal instead of holding her hand." Tears ran down her cheeks as she continued. "Tyler became my obsession because saving him might somehow balance the cosmic scales. If I could give one child the attention I failed to give Emma." Marcus stared at this powerful woman reduced to raw grief and guilt. "So Tyler is what? Your redemption project?" "He was," Victoria said quietly. "But he became something more. You both did." The truth hung between them like a blade, ugly, sharp, and impossible to ignore. Victoria Sterling, one of Chicago's most ruthless executives, had saved Tyler's life, for the most selfish of reasons, then fallen in love with the family she'd created through manipulation and lies. Marcus stormed out of the Sterling Biotech building, his mind reeling from Victoria's revelations. CEO, manipulation, corporate resources. Everything had been a lie designed to assuage the guilt of a powerful woman who'd failed her own child. When he arrived home, Tyler was awake despite the late hour, sitting on the couch with his coloring book. The boy looked up with eyes that seemed too knowing for his 9 years. "Daddy, you look angry," Tyler observed, setting down his crayon. "Did something happen to Dr. Mitchell?" Marcus sat heavily beside his son, unsure how to explain the complex web of deception and guilt that had entangled their lives. Tyler, Dr. Mitchell, she wasn't exactly who we thought she was. Is she not coming back? Tyler's voice carried a tremor of fear. She's the only doctor who really understands my sickness. The simple statement hit Marcus like a physical blow. In his wounded pride and justified anger, he'd forgotten the most important fact. Victoria's treatment was working. For the first time in 18 months, Tyler had been getting better. Daddy. Tyler continued with the brutal honesty only children possess. Why did you tell the doctor who cares about me to go away? Marcus struggled for an answer. How could he explain to a sick child that pride and betrayal mattered more than recovery? That being manipulated, even with good intentions, felt like a violation of everything he'd fought to preserve. Sometimes grown-ups make things complicated, Marcus said weakly. Tyler studied his father's face with that unsettling perception children develop when illness forces them to mature too quickly. Dr. Mitchell looks at me the same way you do when you think I'm sleeping, like she's scared I'm going to die. The observation pierced through Marcus's anger. Tyler had seen what Marcus had been too proud to acknowledge, genuine terror masked as medical professionalism. She lost her little girl to the same sickness I have, Tyler said matter-of-factly. That's why she cries sometimes when she thinks, I'm not looking. A soft knock interrupted their conversation. Marcus opened the door to find Victoria standing in the hallway, no longer the powerful CEO or deceptive consultant. She looked small, vulnerable, stripped of every persona she'd worn. I'm not here as Victoria Sterling, she said quietly. Not as Dr. Mitchell. I'm here as a mother who failed her daughter and can't bear to watch another child suffer when I have the means to help. Tyler appeared beside Marcus, his small frame trembling from medication withdrawal. Dr. Mitchell, are you really not coming back? Victoria knelt to Tyler's eye level, her professional masks finally abandoned. That depends on your father, Tyler. I hurt his trust by not being completely honest. Tyler looked between the two adults, then made a decision with the clarity only innocent wisdom provides. He wrapped his thin arms around Victoria's neck. Please don't give up on me like the other doctors did, he whispered. I'm not ready to be with the angels yet. Marcus watched his son embrace the woman who'd saved his life through manipulation and lies, and realized Tyler understood something the adults had forgotten. Sometimes being saved matters more than pride. Victoria looked up at Marcus with raw desperation. My personal funds, private physicians, no corporate resources, no hidden agendas, just a mother who knows what it's like to fail and can't do it again. Tyler's simple faith in the woman who'd given him hope forced Marcus to confront an uncomfortable truth. His wounded pride was a luxury his dying son couldn't afford. The private medical facility Victoria led them to 3 days later looked nothing like a hospital. Located in a converted brownstone on Chicago's north side, it felt more like an upscale home than a clinical setting. Tyler's eyes widened as they entered a lobby decorated with children's artwork and comfortable furniture. This is where Emma used to come, Victoria explained quietly to Marcus as Tyler explored the colorful waiting area. I bought the building after she died and converted it into a research center for rare pediatric conditions. Marcus watched his son pick up toys and books, his movement still sluggish from medication withdrawal but showing sparks of curiosity. How many children do you treat here? 12 currently. All with conditions the traditional medical system has essentially given up on. Victoria's voice carried professional pride mixed with personal pain. We're not performing miracles, Marcus. We're just refusing to accept that palliative care is the only option. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the facility's director, was refreshingly direct during their consultation. Tyler's case is complex, but we've had success with a modified protocol that combines 3 experimental medications with intensive monitoring. What are the risks? Marcus asked, his father instincts on high alert. Honestly, less than doing nothing, Dr. Rodriguez replied. Traditional treatment for advanced Kleefstra syndrome focuses on comfort, not improvement. We're trying to change that equation. Victoria spread out papers on the conference table. I want complete transparency this time. Every medication, every test, every potential side effect. You'll have access to all research data, and Tyler's participation can end at any moment if you're uncomfortable. Marcus studied the documents, but his systems analyst brain was already working. These monitoring protocols are incredibly complex. You're collecting massive amounts of data on each patient. That's actually where we need your help, Victoria said. Medical research generates enormous data sets, but most facilities lack the technical infrastructure to process information efficiently. For the first time since learning Victoria's true identity, Marcus saw a way to contribute meaningfully rather than just accepting charity. You need someone to streamline data collection and analysis. Exactly, not medical research. You're not qualified for that. But organizing information so doctors can make better decisions faster. Tyler looked up from his toys. Are you talking about computers? Daddy's really good with computers. Victoria smiled, the first genuine expression Marcus had seen from her in days. Your daddy is very talented, Tyler. Maybe he can help us help other kids like you. Over the following weeks, they established a careful partnership. Victoria provided access to cutting-edge treatments through her personal foundation, completely separate from Sterling Biotech. Marcus developed monitoring systems that tracked patient responses in real time, allowing doctors to adjust protocols immediately rather than waiting weeks between appointments. Tyler thrived in the collaborative environment. The facility's approach treated him as a whole child, not just a collection of symptoms. Art therapy, music sessions, and educational support complemented his medical care. Look what I made. Tyler showed them a painting of 3 stick figures, holding hands. That's you, Daddy, and Dr. Victoria, and me in the middle. The simple artwork captured something profound. They'd become a family of sorts, bonded by shared commitment to Tyler's well-being. But as professional collaboration deepened into personal intimacy, both adults recognized dangerous territory. Late evening discussions about Tyler's progress evolved into conversations about loss, hope, and the future. Marcus found himself looking forward to Victoria's calls, while she discovered comfort in his steady presence. We need to be careful, Victoria said one night as they reviewed Tyler's latest test results in her home office. Tyler's recovery is the priority. Our feelings can't compromise his care. Marcus nodded, though the electricity between them was undeniable. Clear boundaries. Professional partnership focused on Tyler. Professional partnership, Victoria agreed, though her eyes lingered on his face. They were walking a tightrope between growing love and protecting the child who'd brought them together, a delicate balance that would determine whether their collaboration saved Tyler or destroyed them all. The breakthrough came at 2 a.m. on a Thursday night. Tyler had been stable for 6 weeks, showing consistent improvement across all metrics. Marcus was updating patient databases when he found Victoria still in her office, staring at Emma's photo with tears streaming down her face. The anniversary is tomorrow, she said without looking up. 3 years since Emma died. Marcus quietly closed the door and sat across from her. In 6 weeks of careful collaboration, they'd maintained professional boundaries. But grief had a way of dissolving walls. She was having breathing problems for 2 days, Victoria continued, her voice hollow. The nanny kept calling, but I was in Switzerland finalizing the acquisition of a German pharmaceutical company. I told her to call Emma's pediatrician that I'd be home soon. Marcus said nothing, recognizing the need to purge poison that had been festering for years. When Emma couldn't breathe that final night, she asked for Mommy. But Mommy was in a hotel conference room arguing over patent rights and market projections. Victoria's composure shattered completely. I chose corporate success over my daughter's life, and I've been paying for it ever since. That's not fair to yourself, Marcus said gently. You couldn't have known. I did know, Victoria interrupted. I knew Emma was getting worse, but I convinced myself the business trip was more important. I thought there would be time later. There's never time later, Marcus. The raw confession hung between them like an open wound. Marcus understood now why Victoria had become the ruthlessly focused CEO the business world feared. Her grief had transformed into professional armor. Can I tell you something I've never admitted to anyone? Marcus asked quietly. Victoria nodded, wiping tears from her cheeks. When Tyler's medical bills started piling up, I researched giving him up for adoption. Not permanently, just until I could get back on my feet financially. The words felt like glass in his throat. There were nights I lay awake calculating whether he'd be better off with a wealthy family who could afford his treatments. But you didn't. No, but I came close. There's a form half filled out in my email drafts that I've never had the courage to delete. Marcus's voice cracked. I almost gave up my son because I was scared of being poor. Victoria reached across the desk and took his hand. But you fought instead. You carried him into that freezing night rather than abandon him. Just like you're fighting now for Tyler and all those other kids in your facility. For the first time, in 3 years, Victoria allowed herself to accept that maybe her guilt wasn't the whole story. Maybe redemption was possible through genuine love rather than self-punishment. Emma would have liked Tyler, she said softly. She always wanted a little brother. Tyler talks about having a sister sometimes. Kids who understand what it's like to be different. The moment stretched between them, heavy with shared loss and tentative hope. When Victoria's phone buzzed with a text message, the spell broke. The message was from Adrian. Touching scene in your office. The board will find the security footage very interesting during tomorrow's emergency meeting. Victoria's blood turned to ice. She'd been so focused on Tyler's care that she'd forgotten Adrian's surveillance, his determination to destroy her connection to the Reynolds family. What's wrong? Marcus asked, seeing her face pale. Victoria showed him the text, her vulnerability now a weapon Adrian could use against her. He's been watching us this whole time, she whispered. Everything we've built, everything Tyler needs, he's going to destroy it all tomorrow. The emergency board meeting convened at 8 a.m. sharp, Adrian's security footage queued up on the conference room screen. Victoria sat at the head of the table, watching her brother orchestrate her destruction. With surgical precision, as you can see, Adrian narrated over images of Victoria crying in her office with Marcus. Our CEO has developed an inappropriate personal relationship with a patient's family, compromising her professional judgment. Board member Patricia Hawkins leaned forward, studying the footage. Victoria, is this man the father of the child you've been treating through your private foundation? Yes, but our relationship is strictly professional. The footage suggests otherwise, Adrian interrupted. Hand-holding after-hours meetings, obvious emotional involvement. This violates every ethical boundary we maintain as a medical research company. What Victoria didn't know was that Adrian's campaign extended far beyond the boardroom. That same morning, anonymous complaints flooded the Illinois Department of Public Health, the FDA, and 3 medical ethics boards. Each complaint raised identical concerns about unauthorized human experimentation on vulnerable pediatric patients. Dr. Martinez from the state regulatory agency called Victoria directly. Ms. Sterling, we've received serious allegations about unethical medical research practices at your private facility. I need to inform you that all experimental treatments are suspended pending investigation. Victoria's heart stopped. Suspended? Dr. Martinez, we have 12 children who depend on these protocols. If you interrupt their care, I understand your concern, but patient safety is paramount. The investigation will be thorough but swift. By noon, the story had reached local media. Channel 7's healthcare reporter stood outside Sterling Biotech with a damning headline, CEO under investigation for unauthorized medical experiments on children. Marcus watched the news report from Tyler's bedside at the private facility, his blood boiling. The story painted Victoria as a rogue executive using sick children as test subjects for personal gain. This is character assassination, he told Dr. Rodriguez. Victoria has spent her own money, her own time. I know, Dr. Rodriguez replied grimly. But perception matters more than truth in situations like this. 3 other families have already withdrawn their children from our program. That afternoon, Marcus made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. He called Channel 7 and requested an on-camera interview. My name is Marcus Reynolds, and my son Tyler has Kleefstra syndrome, he told the reporter. Victoria Sterling saved my child's life, and she's being destroyed by lies. Marcus's passionate defense made the evening news, but it also painted a target on his back. The next morning, he received a certified letter from Sterling Biotech's legal department. Termination of employment effective immediately due to violation of confidentiality agreements. Tyler, unaware of the political war raging around him, asked the question that cut deepest. "Daddy, why did all my new friends stop coming to see Dr. Victoria? Are they getting better somewhere else?" Victoria faced an impossible choice. She could fight the allegations publicly, revealing the full extent of her personal involvement and financial support, potentially exposing herself to criminal charges for misuse of corporate resources. Or she could accept defeat, shutting down the facility to protect Sterling Biotech and abandoning 12 children who depended on her. In her penthouse office, surrounded by Emma's photos and Tyler's artwork, Victoria stared out at the city that had once seemed conquerable. Adrian had played his hand masterfully, using her own love for Tyler as the weapon to destroy everything she'd built. Her assistant knocked softly. "Ms. Sterling, there's a reporter from the Wall Street Journal on line 1. She says she has information about your brother that you need to hear." Victoria picked up the phone, wondering if salvation could come from the most unexpected source, or if Adrian had one final trap waiting to spring. The Wall Street Journal reporter's voice was crisp and professional. "Ms. Sterling, my name is Sarah Chen. I've been investigating pharmaceutical pricing manipulation, and your brother's name has surfaced repeatedly in connection with some very disturbing practices." Victoria's pulse quickened. "What kind of practices?" "Kickback schemes with palliative care providers, artificially inflated prices for maintenance medications, and systematic suppression of research into potential cures. Adrian Sterling has been profiting from keeping patients chronically ill rather than helping them recover." The pieces clicked into place like a horrifying puzzle. Adrian's opposition to her research wasn't about corporate ethics. It was about protecting his revenue streams from long-term patient dependency. But Adrian wasn't finished with his assault. That evening, a coordinated media blitz hit every major Chicago news outlet. Anonymous sources claimed Victoria had been experimenting on desperate families and using her corporate position to exploit vulnerable children. The attack backfired spectacularly. Maria Santos, mother of 6-year-old Diego, called Channel 7 directly. "Victoria Sterling saved my son's life when every other doctor said to make him comfortable and wait for the end. Diego is walking now, talking, going to school, because she refused to give up." By the next morning, 5 more families had come forward with similar stories. Parents stood outside Sterling Biotech holding pictures of their children, not as victims of exploitation, but as living proof of Victoria's compassion. James Wilson, whose daughter had severe cerebral palsy, told reporters, "The traditional medical system wanted to warehouse my Emma in a long-term care facility. Victoria's team taught her to communicate, to interact, to have joy. That's not exploitation. That's love." The tide of public opinion shifted rapidly when investigative reporters began examining Adrian's financial records. The Wall Street Journal published a devastating exposé. Sterling VP profited from patient suffering while sister fought for cures. The article revealed Adrian's network of kickback arrangements with suppliers of expensive palliative medications. For years, he'd been receiving commissions from companies that benefited from keeping patients chronically dependent on costly treatments. Victoria's research threatened his carefully constructed profit model. Adrian's response was swift and brutal. He called an emergency board vote and, with carefully orchestrated allies, removed Victoria as CEO of Sterling Biotech effective immediately. "The board has lost confidence in Victoria Sterling's judgment and her ability to maintain appropriate professional boundaries," the official statement read. Victoria stood in her former office, packing Emma's photos and Tyler's artwork, as Adrian claimed the CEO position he'd coveted for years. "You've destroyed everything," she told him as security waited to escort her out. "I've saved the company from your emotional instability," Adrian replied coldly. "Your little charity project is finished, Vic. Those experimental treatments, that facility of yours, it all ends now." But as Victoria walked through the lobby of Sterling Biotech for the last time, she found Marcus and Tyler waiting by the security desk. along with a dozen other families from her program. "We're not going anywhere," Marcus said simply. "If you're out, we're all out." Tyler ran to Victoria and hugged her waist. "Dr. Victoria, Daddy says we're going to start our own hospital. Is that true?" Victoria looked at the faces surrounding her. Not wealthy board members or corporate allies, but families who understood that love sometimes mattered more than profit margins. "Yes, Tyler," she said, lifting him into her arms. "I think that's exactly what we're going to do." Adrian had won Sterling Biotech, but Victoria had gained something infinitely more valuable: a family willing to fight alongside her. 8 months after leaving Sterling Biotech, Victoria stood in the bright conference room of the newly established Emma's Hope Foundation, reviewing Tyler's latest medical reports with trembling hands. The numbers were undeniable. For the first time in his young life, Tyler Reynolds was in sustained remission. "His cognitive function has improved 40%, Dr. Rodriguez reported to the room full of medical professionals, researchers, and family members. "Seizure activity has been reduced to 0 for the past 6 weeks. Physical coordination and speech patterns are approaching normal developmental markers." Marcus watched his son color quietly in the corner, the same boy who, 18 months ago, could barely lift his head from a pillow. Tyler had become not just a survivor, but a symbol of what was possible when medicine combined with genuine compassion. "How many other patients are showing similar improvements?" asked Dr. Patricia Wells, a pediatric neurologist who'd joined Victoria's team after resigning from Sterling Biotech in protest of Adrian's leadership. "7 of our 12 active cases have achieved significant improvement," Victoria replied. "Not cures, we're honest about that, but quality of life transformations that traditional medicine deemed impossible." The foundation's success hadn't gone unnoticed. Ethical investors, impressed by both the medical results and Victoria's transparent approach, had provided substantial funding. The Emma's Hope Foundation now operated 3 facilities across Illinois, treating rare pediatric conditions that the traditional medical establishment had abandoned. But Victoria's vindication came with a price that was becoming increasingly apparent. Her phone buzzed with a news alert. Former Sterling Biotech CEO Adrian Sterling indicted on federal charges. The FBI had been thorough in their investigation following the Wall Street Journal expose. Adrian faced 17 counts of healthcare fraud, racketeering, and conspiracy to manipulate drug prices. The evidence was overwhelming: years of documented kickbacks, suppressed research, and deliberate sabotage of potentially life-saving treatments. He destroyed people's hope for profit, FBI agent Sarah Martinez told reporters outside the federal courthouse. While families struggled to afford basic medications, Adrian Sterling was collecting millions in commissions from companies that benefited from their suffering. Marcus found Victoria standing alone in her office, watching the news coverage with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. "You don't look happy," he observed. "Adrian is still my brother," she said quietly. "Despite everything he's done, seeing him in handcuffs, it doesn't feel like victory. But Tyler's recovery does." Victoria turned to look through the glass wall at Tyler, who was now helping younger children with their art projects. In 8 months, he'd transformed from a dying child into a mentor for other kids facing similar battles. "Do you know what Tyler told me yesterday?" Victoria asked. "He said he wants to become a doctor so he can help kids like Emma. Not because he remembers being sick, but because he remembers what it felt like when someone refused to give up on him." Marcus moved closer, the professional boundaries they'd maintained gradually dissolving. "Victoria, what you've accomplished here. You gave up everything to save my son." "I gave up Sterling Biotech," she corrected, "but I gained something worth infinitely more." Through the window they watched Tyler carefully showing a 6-year-old girl with muscular dystrophy how to grip a paintbrush. His patience and gentleness with the younger children revealed a maturity born not from suffering, but from understanding how precious hope could be. "The board meeting is next week," Marcus said, referring to Sterling Biotech's emergency session, "to select Adrian's replacement. They've approached you about returning as CEO." Victoria shook her head. That company represents everything I've learned to reject. The pursuit of profit over people, the corporate politics, the emotional distance required to make cold business decisions. So you're choosing this instead. Marcus gestured toward the Foundation's bustling activity. I'm choosing family, Victoria said, her eyes meeting his. I'm choosing the chance to save children instead of manipulating stock prices. I'm choosing to be present for the moments that matter. As if summoned by their conversation, Tyler appeared in the doorway with a completed drawing. Dr. Victoria, I made this for you, he said, holding up a picture of a woman in a white coat surrounded by smiling children. It's you being the best doctor ever. Victoria knelt to accept the artwork, her eyes filling with tears. Thank you, Tyler. This is perfect. As Tyler returned to his friends, Marcus realized something profound. Victoria Sterling had transformed from a powerful CEO driven by guilt into a woman motivated by love. The empire she'd built and lost seemed insignificant compared to the lives she was saving every day. Justice had been served on multiple fronts: Tyler's recovery, Adrian's downfall, and Victoria's redemption through genuine service. But the most important victory was still to come. 2 years later, Victoria Sterling stood in the laboratory where her journey began, surrounded by evidence of transformation that once seemed impossible. Emma's memorial wall remained, but now it was joined by dozens of children's drawings, artwork from young patients who'd found hope when traditional medicine had offered none. The Emma's Hope Foundation operated 5 facilities across 3 states, treating over 60 children with rare conditions. More importantly, their research protocols had been adopted by major medical centers nationwide, proving that compassion and innovation could coexist. The Chicago Tribune wants to interview you about the Foundation's expansion, Marcus said, entering with afternoon coffee and Tyler's latest school report. And Tyler made the honor roll again. Victoria smiled, accepting both the coffee and the report. Tyler, now 11 and in full remission for 18 months, had become a natural leader among the Foundation's young patients. His transformation from dying child to healthy adolescent had inspired families across the country. Where is our resident counselor? Victoria asked, referring to Tyler's unofficial role helping younger children adjust to their treatment programs. Teaching 6-year-old Maya how to paint, Marcus replied. She's been scared of the medical equipment, but Tyler convinced her that IV poles make excellent easels. Through the laboratory window, they could see Tyler kneeling beside a small girl with spina bifida, patiently showing her how to dip her brush in paint. His gentle encouragement and understanding of fear had made him irreplaceable to the Foundation's emotional support programs. Dr. Victoria, Tyler had told her last month, I remember being scared of all the machines, but you never got scared of me, so I learned not to be scared either. The Foundation's success had attracted attention from ethical investors and medical professionals seeking alternatives to profit-driven healthcare. Victoria's transparent approach, publishing all research data, sharing treatment protocols freely, and reinvesting every dollar into patient care, had revolutionized how rare disease research could be conducted. But personal happiness had taken longer to achieve. Marcus closed the laboratory door and turned to face Victoria with unusual nervousness. There's something I need to tell you. The quarterly reports can wait, she said. But Marcus shook his head. This isn't about business. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and Victoria's breath caught. 2 years ago, you saved Tyler's life through manipulation and corporate power. But along the way, you saved mine through something much more valuable. Victoria's eyes filled with tears as Marcus continued. You taught me that love isn't about control or pride. It's about showing up, even when it's messy and complicated and might cost you everything. He opened the box to reveal a simple diamond ring. Victoria Sterling, you've given me and Tyler a family we never imagined possible. Will you marry me? The question hung in the air between Emma's memorial photos and Tyler's hopeful artwork. A perfect representation of how grief could transform into joy without dishonoring the past. Marcus, Victoria whispered, are you sure you want to marry a woman who's best known for corporate scandals and experimental medicine? I want to marry the woman who chose love over power, who traded a corner office for a chance to save children, who taught my son that being different doesn't mean being less valuable. Through the window, Tyler looked up from his painting session and waved enthusiastically. He'd been lobbying for this moment for months, drawing pictures of our family and asking when Dr. Victoria would officially become his stepmom. Yes, Victoria said, extending her hand for the ring. Yes, I'll marry you. As Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, Tyler burst through the laboratory door with Maya in tow. Did you ask her yet? Tyler demanded, paint streaking his cheek. Did she say yes? She said yes, Marcus confirmed, lifting Tyler for a hug. Tyler whooped with joy, then turned to Maya. See? I told you grown-ups could have happy endings too. 6 months later, they were married in the Foundation's main facility garden, surrounded by medical staff, patient families, and 60 children who'd found hope through Victoria's refusal to accept impossible odds. In her vows, Victoria spoke, not of corporate achievements or medical breakthroughs, but of a 9-year-old boy who'd taught her that saving one life could transform everything. Emma will always be my first daughter, she said, her voice steady despite tears. But Tyler taught me that families aren't just born. They're chosen, built, and sustained through love that refuses to give up. As they exchanged rings, Tyler served as best man, holding the bands with the same careful attention he'd once reserved for his medications. The ceremony ended with Tyler's drawing presentation, a picture of 4 figures holding hands, Marcus, Victoria, Tyler, and a small angel with blonde hair watching over them. This is our family, Tyler announced to the gathered crowd, the one we chose to build together. The Emma's Hope Foundation continued to grow, but its heart remained the same. A laboratory where grief had been transformed into purpose, where corporate power had been exchanged for genuine service, and where love had proven stronger than loss. Victoria Sterling had traded an empire for a family and discovered that she'd made the best deal of her life.